Graham Matthews, Bleacher Report, fan-sided, daily DDT. My man, how you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Randy Cruz. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. Also, Jeff Johnson, Bleacher Report in the building today. We're doing the show live. Jeff, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I can't complain. It's Friday, you know what I mean? And we ready to rock. So glad to be joining y'all. I love what y'all do. So I'm really excited, pumped. End of the week. Whole lot of stuff to talk about. So
That's
you
right.
already know.
You can follow Graham on Twitter /X at Russell Rants. Follow Jeff at Jeff J Says. Both do great work for Bleacher Report. You can find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music. Go to youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show some love and support for your boys on the program. We are doing this live on Twitter and YouTube Friday, September 27th. So if you got any questions or comments from my boys on the program, let us know. We'll get to it on the air. So, Jeff, since you are the guest, I'm going to start with you. There's been a very important documentary that came out on Netflix, Mr. McMahon. I have not seen 1 second of it, but I've seen everybody on planet Earth has seen it, probably all in one night, 6 straight hours. I commend them for doing that. I'll probably do one or two at a time. But if you or Graham have seen any parts of this, what has been your overall thoughts of this highly anticipated documentary on Vince McMahon?
Yeah, for me, I've seen the first 2 episodes so far, so I just tapped in, and I would say for myself, the amount of information discovery is probably minimal because I've heard a lot of the stories before. But I think what's ill about it is the footage that you get, the background information. Like they talk about how wrestling wasn't really covered by legitimate reporters, or I would say like the mainstream reporters, like Hard News didn't really cover wrestling, and it wasn't until Phil Mushnick of the Post was really discussing it. And I remember back in the day, I remember his column, and it was like in the Post, he was the only one that was covering wrestling like Mike Lupica was covering the NBA and all these other sports. I mean, this is like super New York talk. I apologize for those of y'all. They're national reporters too, if you've heard of them, like OG reporters. But that's how they were. That's how it was being covered, and how the conflicts arose. Like where I'm at in the documentary, they got to the steroids case. They talked about the early starts about WWF and the territories and all of that. So. If you've been around WWE for years or watched documentaries, you've probably heard a lot of these stories before, but you're getting different perspectives. So I'd say as a documentary, they're doing what they need to do. But if you really like in the weeds with it, like if you're like a real wrestling documentary head or a wrestling information consumer, you've probably heard a lot of this stuff before. I don't know what happens from 3 to 6, but it's good to be refreshed. Like I'd say for me, just seeing how WrestleMania happened and hearing it from the perspective of everybody was on credit and putting their chips in the table and one wrong thing, and hearing about the different stuff that was happening in real life that was colliding with wrestling, like with journalists that were trying to cover wrestling and expose the business and what was happening to them. Like I remember these stories, but hearing it from the perspective of how it almost derailed the first WrestleMania, I thought that was pretty cool. So just hearing those perspectives. But once again, if you watch every documentary and do stuff like that, you probably are sitting here saying, "Oh, I knew this already." But it's always cool to watch a documentary and see how a different perspective would frame the events.
All right, Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I've seen the first 3 episodes so far.
Okay.
That one covers like the screw jobs with Wendy Richter and the Bret Hart screw job. Obviously, dude, we've heard this a million fucking times on a million different documentaries, obviously. But that being said, hearing it from the perspective of Vince is interesting because you can just see through a lot of the BS from him, Hogan, just a lot of the people that they get to talk on this stuff. Bruce Pritchard, especially. None of that, like Jeff said, none of this is new information. If you watch any wrestling documentary, really primarily Dark Side of the Ring as well, like they cover like at least in the first 3 episodes, I could see at least 4 or 5 different Dark Side of the Ring episodes I've seen before that do a better job of covering this stuff in depth than what documentary. But I think the bottom line of it, 2 things. My top 2 takeaways were, 1, it's not really for us wrestling fans. I mean, it's on Netflix. I mean, like Dark Side of the Ring and stuff, it's on Vice. That's primarily because we will go out of our way to watch that. Netflix is such a massive streaming, the biggest streaming service in the world. It's for everyone that either fell out of wrestling, hasn't watched wrestling before. I don't know, after watching this documentary, you're going to want to watch Raw on Netflix in a couple months because they paint the company, and specifically Vince, who's obviously no longer there, but, you know, of the lawsuit and stuff are still there and whatever. You know, it's still it paints it out to be a pretty disgusting industry as far as like the women's stuff are concerned, and a lot of the shit done over the course of the last several decades. So it's very eye-opening to see. It's really just, it's not what Vince says, it's what he doesn't say and how he words certain things. Like when he talks about, I think it was in the 2nd episode where he mentioned like the statute of limitations or something because he was accused of rape several times. But one from like several decades ago, he goes, I didn't do it. It was consensual. But if it was rape, the statute of limitations ran out anyway. I'm like, why the fuck would you say that? That's crazy. That's such a Vince McMahon like mindset. But to hear him say that is crazy. So there's a lot of like wild one-liners like that have gotten Twitter talking the last 2-3 days that people, you know, cut clips of and shit. But it's an interesting watch. Honestly, I mean, I think it's worth watching for any fan. But honestly, moreover than that, I would recommend this to like friends, family of mine that do not watch the product like actively, maybe are aware of Vince and the shit that's gone on in the past 2 years. It's pretty crazy stuff because all the actual ins and outs of everything, like Jeff said, we already know. So it's interesting, if nothing else. And they cover a lot of stuff that we've already heard before. The first Mania, Montreal Screwjob. But like Jeff said as well, I think the main thing is the different perspectives of it is what really makes it worth watching for us fans specifically.
And what I read earlier is that the documentary drew more attention once McMahon put out a tweet saying, you know, his thoughts about it, and, you know, 2 sides to every story, and then hearing about he might try to buy it off Netflix and not air it. So now you're building more intrigue to want to watch it because now you're like, hey, there's something on this documentary that maybe I don't know, even as a wrestling fan or not, that it could be something very interesting. But I mean, for me, I'm on episode 0. I had not seen anything, so I'm definitely gonna tap into it sometime this week. But it seems very interesting. I've been seeing it on Twitter the last couple of days. I see this clip, that clip, and like you said, things that I've known of WrestleMania and you know, Hogan and Andre, and it's like then there's a screw job, then there's a steroid scandal in the 90s, and Monday Night Wars, and then they go into later stuff. So it's like, I think the bottom line is just hearing it from Vince himself on camera for that many hours and just trying to see how this is going to play out. That's probably the most interesting part about this documentary. But, you know, once you guys finish the rest, let me know what you think, because I'm going to check it out sometime this week.
I'll tell you one thing, Randy, that's ill about it. They intelligently put at the beginning that this took place before the Janelle Grant suit drop.
Yes.
And all of that stuff bubbled up. So all of these, a majority, like 90% of it takes place before it drops. So if they table set well with that opening statement. It's like a text on the screen. Once you watch the documentary from that perspective, it's even more mind-blowing, because you know, had that information, that news drop when but before they film the majority of their stuff, maybe some of the answers are more measured. Maybe they're not as real. Maybe Vince doesn't do it
at all.
Oh, he definitely
at all.
No.
And just and his I'm sure his legal team would have told him,
like,
you know, like his own meme.
Fam.
They would have gave him his own meme and told him to like cut that, right? So when you watch, like, even the statute of limitation thing that he said that Grant brought up, I was like, first, I was like, that's wild to say. Second, knowing what we know now about the news that broke, oh boy. If I was his lawyer, I would just be sick. I'd be sick right now, because I'm like, now I'm going to have to earn my paycheck twice.
Yeah. That's the best part, too, because you mentioned the statement that he put out, Randy. And he goes, oh, yeah, the clever editing tricks. I've only seen the first 3, so I maybe there's more to come. I'm not sure. There is no real editing tricks. And if there are any editing tricks, quote unquote, it's stuff that doesn't make let's put it this way. There's nothing that they edit or include, like cut up, chop up what he says, that makes him look any worse than what he says himself. Like that line about the statute of limitations, he says that himself. Like they don't cut that up. Like you watch the full thing in its entirety. Like there's no editing there. Like I'm not even, honestly, from what we see in this documentary, like all of this stuff is already known information. So I'm not exactly sure from what we've seen that he's so like adamant about, I want this taken down. I want to own this thing so I can get it, whatever, removed. I'm thinking, what information is there in this documentary that is so damning? Because it's obviously bad, but it's nothing that we didn't already know. So it's very strange. I mean, again, and he said this shit on camera and willingly, maybe he got a different cut of it than what we all saw. I don't know, because from what I've seen so far, I'm thinking, why was like WWE mad about this reportedly? Because I mean, I don't know. This is all fucking factual shit. So it's very
he's
strange.
a carny, bro.
Yeah.
He's a carny, bro. We were talking about it and we watching. So
and Graham,
accomplished.
As you mentioned, the fact that I heard everything took place in 21. So you're going back 3 years of when he was sitting down. So him volunteering, like, hey, I think it's my time to sit down and tell my story. Like no one went to him as far as I know. It went to, hey Vince, you want to do this? Yeah, sure. He's telling, hey, I want to do this.
But that's the thing. That the worst part about it is that he literally says in the first fucking minute of this thing, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you the real stories." They're like, "What?" And they're like, and he says,
"Why are we here?"
Oh yeah. And other people say that from their own perspectives. He will only let you on to what he wants you to know. We will never know the full story from his perspective. He will take that shit to the grave. I mean, that's pretty evident watching this documentary. We will never know the true Vince, because the whole selling point of this thing was like, oh, you got to get to know the real Vince McMahon. We don't. Honestly, 3 episodes in, I don't. He's just reciting the same shit I've heard him say before. A lot of bullshit, just making himself look bad. What else is new? But you really don't. I mean, I think the top takeaway, having not finished it yet, is that Mr. McMahon is Vince McMahon. It's the same fucking person. He'll say like, oh, it's a character, but like it's the same guy. It's pretty evident.
Graham, I don't know, bro. I said this before. I'll say it again. I might rather be Mr. McMahon than Vince McMahon. Because Mr. McMahon, we know, is a cartoonishly villain boss who everybody wants to beat up. And I know at the end of the day, that's somebody, a character on TV. When you blur the lines, you start looking a little punch drunk. You know what I mean? Like your blood alcohol level is through the roof when you start blurring those lines. So I definitely, and that's where I think the statement came from, where he's like, they're trying to make me seem like Mr. McMahon and Vince is the same person. I'm like, yo, Vince, at this point, you might want to lean more towards Mr. McMahon and get away from Vince. Because at least people will be like, oh, maybe he was method acting and it just carried out into whatever. But yeah, man, I don't know what clever editing trick they used other than press play and upload and color. Maybe it was the color grading that pissed them off. I don't know.
Audio up and down. Like
right. He went into audition and he was furious.
Yeah, I guess so.
Crazy. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to check it out. It should be very interesting. So we got Graham Matthews and Jeff Johnson here, both from Bleacher Report. You're watching live on YouTube and Twitter. Hit us up in the chat. So yesterday, news broke that SummerSlam 2025 will be the first ever 2-night SummerSlam, culminating from the great state of New Jersey. MetLife. So this is the first time SummerSlam is ever going to be on a 2-night occasion, a la WrestleMania. Jeff, I'll start with you. Your first thoughts on MetLife being the first host city stadium for a 2-night SummerSlam. Your thoughts on that? And we have that and Mania. This is a trend where, all right, at some point in time, it's going to be a 2-night Royal Rumble. It's going to be a 2-night Survivor Series. Do you think SummerSlam should be a 2-night event as a whole?
Well, first off, I think it's what the business dictates. I think WWE is in a prime position to pull up from the logo and try to make it a 2-night event. We lost Randy Cruz. We lost Randy Cruz. We are in uncharted waters, Graham. So this is the Graham and Jeff show.
It's the Bleacher Report show now.
Randy screwed Randy. Just remember that. At the end of the day, Randy screwed Randy. All right. But I'll keep it going. And you tell me what you think, Graham.
Yeah.
I think it was always going to trend that way. Even we can connect with the documentary, right? When we think about what the idea for WrestleMania it was the Super Bowl of wrestling. Now you think about these major events. WWE had a big four: Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Money in the Bank became their fifth major event, where these events were going to take place in stadiums. Then every other event, like the B-level events, we would call them, would be in arenas. Now they've expanded their model to go straight stadium in every single month. Whether you go in, whether the Saudi events with Crown Jewel and all those other Saudi events, when they're going overseas, they're usually in a stadium or an arena, a major, huge arena. So I think it was always going to be the case that they were going to expand and see, well, what if we were able to run something else 2 nights? You know, and the way their current TV programming is set up, you got SmackDown on Friday, and then you'll have the 2-day event. This allows your talent to get more primetime looks, because now you could have SmackDown as like the opening ceremonies for your 2-day event. So I think this is great for talent, because they're going to get those primetime positions. You don't have to pack every single match you have into one day, because I don't know, Graham, were you at Mania in MetLife?
I was the last time I was. Yeah. That was the last One Night Mania.
That was the last One Night Mania, and it was a reason. More than anything, 7 straight hours was a nightmare. And then commuting from MetLife, if you're from the tri-state area, you already know there were people who were stranded because they didn't get out, because Becky won the title at like 10 a.m.
Yeah, dude. It was crazy.
Yeah, so I think it's a good look. I think it's smart on WWE to test run the 2-day SummerSlam before it happens in Minneapolis. I think 2026 is in Minneapolis, right? I think that's where
for SummerSlam,
for SummerSlam, right? So it's good to test run SummerSlam, and they have storyline wise built in to how they're going to make it a main event, because the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring get that title shot at SummerSlam. So now we're getting, this is almost like the opening, this is their in-season tournament, kind of like what they have. If you're thinking about soccer, where they have their domestic cup, and then you have the Champions League with all of Europe, and then within their countries they have a bigger events like the Carabao Cup and all of that. This is how WWE is structuring their events. WrestleMania is their Super Bowl, but SummerSlam might be their all-star game. It might be their in-season tournament. Just because you have those 4 or 5 events spread out doesn't mean you have to skimp on those. So I think it's good for them, and I think they're going to scale gradually, right? Like, I don't think they're going to make everything two nights. What do you think, Graham?
No, I agree. I mean, it's been 2-night Manias for 4 or 5 years now, 5 by Vegas by next spring. So it's not like it's going to be an immediate thing. But like you said, I think you put it perfectly. Personally, I'm not super in favor of it, just because I feel like less is more. And I was at SummerSlam this past one, and I felt like they did a nice job of formatting. I think it was only 7 matches. Now, people will complain that certain matches don't get on the card. I get it. I totally understand that. But like you said, Jeff, I think it makes the SmackDown beforehand and the Raw afterward more special too. I feel like, because you can have that be the opening ceremony of the weekend. Now, you can do that anyway if it's a 2-night show, which is what they're going to do. Right. But they kind of did that even this past year when they had the tag titles change hands on the SmackDown before SummerSlam. They had the Bloodline win them on the SmackDown before. People were wondering why that wasn't on the SummerSlam card. And I get it. It would have been 5 years ago when they had 12 matches on a show. Like, I think one of the last SummerSlams they did pre-pandemic, 2016, 2017, they had like fucking 12 matches on the card at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The show would get over at 11:30 or whatever, and that would be a 7 p.m. start time. So this will help space things out a little bit better and give more matches more time. And listen, if the product is better, that's the thing too. Because if you have a 7-night card, or 7-night card, feels like
at this point, right?
Yeah, it felt like it at Mania 35.
The Olympics.
Exactly. Oh, Randy's back. There we go.
There he is.
Still chatting.
Listen,
SummerSlam, Randy.
I'm pretty sure you gave a great, compelling answer. I didn't hear one word of it.
Nah, it's all good, bro. This was our master plan all along. It was me, Randy. It was me all along. Nah, but wait, I'll give you the cliff notes of what I said, and Graham, you could continue because you got a great jumping off point. This is like a comic right now. This is like a comic book. I'm ending my run, and this is Graham is going to be the jump off point for new readers and whatnot. Yeah. So I said I think it's good because it's good for business, and the business will dictate where you go with it to expand it to 2 nights. You get more people on the card throughout the Friday night SmackDown before SummerSlam and the 2 nights prior. I don't think that they're going to jump directly into making their big 5 2 nights. I think this is a good testing ground for what they're going to do in Minneapolis in 2026. And also, we're bringing recipes back as well because SummerSlam used to be a Brooklyn Barclays thing for a few years. They did their residency here. So I like it for all of those reasons. And Graham, you take the handoff.
No. I was just kind of going off of what Jeff said because I agree. I feel like, while I'm not in favor of it personally, it just makes sense business-wise. I mean, the product is white hot right now. It has been for at least a year or two. The bubble at some point will burst, and I'm not looking forward to that point where they still have a 2-night SummerSlam and they struggle to fill out the card because I feel like that will happen eventually. I'm not saying it's next year. I'm not saying it's in 2 years. I don't know when that's going to be. But if the product is as hot as it is, you have a roster as deep as it is currently, then it makes sense. I prefer that format. I'm not a big fan of 2-night cards unless it's Mania. And even then I wasn't a big fan of it. But for Mania, it's worked out perfectly. For SummerSlam, there's less compared to Mania, there's less grandeur. Like with Mania, you have like the long entrances and the big video packages. I think we lost Randy again.
Yep.
But still, I just feel like with Mania, it makes sense to make it 2 nights because you have so much, I don't want to say wasted time, but like you spend a lot of time on the entrances and stuff like that. You don't really have that with SummerSlam, but maybe they will make it a bigger deal. For a long time, people slept on SummerSlam. People still sleep on Survivor Series, and I totally understand. But SummerSlam, if you want to make it the Mania of the summer, this is one way of doing that. And if they can make more money by fitting more people in those seats across 2 nights and make it a special attraction, maybe to fill out the building or the stadium next year, they get The Rock on the card for the first time in 20 years at a SummerSlam. Make it feel more special. This year was good. It could be even better next year. So I think it's a decent move. I'm not a big fan of making like Rumble 2 nights. I
don't think you need that. Certain things
I think it's unnecessary. Yeah.
And SummerSlam is a summer event. So that makes sense. SummerSlam would be a summer event, so you make it 2 nights. I don't think Survivor Series ever needs to go 2 nights. No. I think the Royal Rumble actually loses some prestige if it's 1 night because that's supposed to be the kickoff to the road to WrestleMania. And we don't need 2 nights on the road. We only need to go 1 night, a night trip, and we're right back on the road to WrestleMania, right? So I don't think that's the case. But the thing about prestige, Graham and Randy, is it's built incrementally. And it appreciates year over year through constant shows, the shows that you put on, through the moments that you make. So I think they've gotten to the point where SummerSlam, people know the name. And there's the major things that happen. But it hasn't been put on a grandeur pedestal yet. And I think making it 2 nights isn't going to do it. It's what they do next year for that first 2-night event that can set the stage for the future, because WrestleMania now is going to be in April, right? And SummerSlam is going to be in August. So what do you do between April and August to make SummerSlam matter? Right now, if it was like, what's it, 4 months, 6, 10? If it was in October and it's half the year, so it's 6 months we get our major event. Then every 6 months we get our major event. Logistically, that would make more sense. Yeah. But then you think about the WWE year after WrestleMania. WrestleMania is the season finale of WWE programming. So now we start the road. The night after WrestleMania is the build to SummerSlam. Yeah. Is a 3-month build. So you're telling that 3-month arc, and then after August you get the holidays, which is maybe they can build it into a faux off season where it's lighter, where it's not, where we're slowly planting the seeds for what's going to happen at the Royal Rumble. Yeah. They'll probably have one of the Saudi events, I think, in like October and November. So that's like the Elseworld story that it matters, but wild shit happens over there, and then they bake it back in. So if they construct it right, that can also be the time where folks are taking vacation. Because I remember back in the day, me and my boys used to joke with WCW that in the summer, wrestlers would go on the WCW vacation. Like Kevin Nash, you didn't see him for the whole month of July because he took off and they wrote him off. And I think if you're able to build like that, it can be beneficial, especially for the wrestlers.
No, I definitely think so as well. I mean, it already feels like we have somewhat of an off season in like October, November, December.
Right.
I mean, especially with the holidays, they don't really run live shows now around Christmas, which is good. I mean, the house shows, yeah, but I mean like Raws and SmackDowns. That as much of as an off season as they have without outright telling you, hey, we're taking the month off because, you want to encourage people to tune in. But that's really like at least last year and the year before, that was when they started planning like the Sami Zayn bloodline seeds and stuff like that. And leading into Mania this year, Cody Rhodes, kind of planting the seeds that he wants to win the Rumble again. Like that's kind of what we can have. That's when you can kind of give talent more time off and space it out throughout the year. So not everyone's taking off the month of December. And Randy's Wi-Fi is not agreeing with him today, I guess. But
his Wi-Fi is healing it up on him right now. That's crazy. I told him you gotta get that Ethernet, bro. You gotta get that Ethernet cable. I don't play around with it. It's like it's when you need it at the point where you need it the most is when it'll fail you.
No, for sure, exactly. It's whenever it matters most. That's when the internet fucks you over, unless you got that Ethernet. So
unreliable Wi-Fi. Let me ask you though, Graham. If it wasn't SummerSlam, would there be any other WWE events that you would make 2 nights?
I mean, it wouldn't be Rumble. I completely agree. I feel like that takes away from it. And honestly, we are still at a point. People look forward. I mean, I feel like even when they added the second Rumble, people were kind of questionable, but they've made it work with the women's and men's Rumble. Honestly, though, we're still at a point, even in 2024, and I understand why, because it's been around a lot longer. More people look forward to the men's Rumble than they do the women's Rumble. And the men's Rumble will always be the second night. And that kind of, to me, defeats or undermines the women's Rumble. So I feel like I would not make that 2 nights because that would make whatever night the women's Rumble is on automatically feel less special, and it just wouldn't be good. But as far as two other night shows, maybe Money in the Bank. I wouldn't even go to 2 nights any other show. Maybe Money in the Bank. But I guess even going back to what I just said, people would look forward more to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match than the women's one. So I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless I could devise a storyline for Survivor Series, like kind of make it like an elimination, like you got to qualify for Sunday night to get into War Games or something like. Remember Battle Bowl? Lethal Lottery.
WCW
maybe there's something
Battle
you can
Bowl.
do around that.
Maybe throwback right there.
That's like big brain stuff to make it almost like a their version of March Madness. And Saturday night is like the first night, and then you don't know who's gonna get to Sunday, and you put a title on the line like that. That's how abstract like you gotta get to justify a second night of Survivor Series. You know what I mean? Like unless the major conflict happens on Saturday, and then Sunday is a tournament based thing where the wrestlers get in, but then you have people wrestling for 2 nights. You run the risk of leaving yourself vulnerable. What if somebody gets injured? What happens? And you got to think of so many different contingencies. You might have to have the whole NXT roster on standby just in case. Like, yo, y'all all got to come. We about to have takeover or stand and deliver on night 2. Fuck it, So
they ran that risk this year. I mean, it ended up working out and being great with Cody, Rock, and Roman. But dude, what if Cody or Roman got hurt in that tag team match on night 1? They would have been fucked on night 2. You can't do that every year. It worked out well for this year. Punk got hurt. Otherwise, Rollins and Punk would have main evented. They got lucky, but you can't do that every year. Or the only other situation I would relate that to is maybe King of the Ring. You give one night the entire tournament and then save the finals for night 2. But even then, King of the Ring is just now becoming important again. You can't. I don't think people would pay tickets to go to 2 nights, at least not in 2024, 2025, maybe 5-10 years down the road. But
I agree with that.
Keep it to SummerSlam and Mania for now, at least, for another 5 years. We'll see.
So while my Wi-Fi was acting up, I'm reading Twitter timeline going a little crazy. So we are doing this live. So someone mentioned live shows, right? So
that was
Grant, we know that the holiday tour usually comes to the Garden in December.
They're not doing it this year, right?
They're not doing it. They're going to be in Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Baltimore, Orlando, Chicago, Miami, Houston, and Detroit from December 26th through December 30th. From what I see from a boy Sean at Fightful. Also, I did see as of 2 hours ago that the plan for the main event for Bad Blood is the tag match with Roman and Cody against Solo and Fatu. So it's not Drew McIntyre as of today. It's not Drew McIntyre and CM Punk in a Hell in a Cell match. Jeff, if you had the pen, if you're Hunter, who's main eventing Bad Blood, Punk and McIntyre, or the Bloodline storyline with Cody Rhodes?
I think for this one, I would put Punk and McIntyre in the main event. It's bad blood. They're literal bad blood between them. Months of bad blood.
Yeah,
you finish.
yeah.
The bloodletting has to happen in the main event. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I would do. I think that the issue is when you have Cody, Roman, and Bloodline, it's either got to set off the show or it's got to end. You can't put that in the middle. So, and you know, Big Uso calls the shots. So if Big Uso wants that main event, he's the house. You know what I mean? Like you can't really tell him different. And it's not that it's going to be a bad thing. It's not going to be, you know, it'll still be a dope show. I just think if we're going straight based on storylines and the stories that you've been telling us, a lot of these stories can compete for that main event, to be completely honest. But I think if that's the only Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood used to be a Hell in a Cell staple, right? Isn't that where Triple and Mankind, Cactus Jack, they went through like multiple Faces of Fear, and we had the light up what was it, 2x4 with the nails in it and all that. That's my WWE. When it was total chaos, right? So I just think storyline wise, it would be Punk McIntyre. I think if you're gonna have Roman and Cody end the show, Punk and Drew got to be right before. They can't go. I don't think they should go anywhere else. Because if you start the night with that match, it's gonna be too much animosity in the air. You know what I mean? It's just too much animosity in the air. And I feel like you're gonna have, I think, Damian and Finn. You're gonna have Rhea, Liv, and Dom. Everybody got beef. It's just gonna be beef is in the air. It's just gonna be nothing but conflict. But there's levels to the conflict, because even the Judgment Day versus Terror Twins conflict, it's personal, but it's still like they not trying to shoot each other. They ain't trying to stab each other. They just want to beat each other up. Punk and Drew is AAA violence. Bloodline versus Roman and Cody, that's like cinematic violence, right? But so he has to set up the sequencing right. But if it was to me, I would put Punk. I would set it off with the Bloodline, and I would end with Punk and Drew.
So before Graham goes, and goes next on the topic, if this is the main event, Cody, Roman, Fatu, and Solo, does it scream like, oh, you're gonna put this on last because it can't just be it can't just be the match and that's it. Something else has to happen. Like, does Jimmy Uso return? Does Jey Uso come out? Are we gonna now set up War Games for Survivor Series? Like, what's the next step? Because you can't just be like, all right, Cody gets a pin and it's a wrap, and then like him and Roman stare and like, what are we doing now? So something else of the story has to continue. So are we getting a return? Are Cody and Roman going to start beefing with each other? Is Kevin Owens going to get mad at Cody for teaming with Roman, like, or Randy or somebody? Like, so Grant, what's the plan in your mind of why this will main event and not McIntyre and Punk?
I completely agree with Jeff. I think it should be the Hell in a Cell match, but I think a couple reasons in their mind why it may not main event. One, Cody and Roman, I mean, I get it. It's a massive deal. I'm not saying it's the exact equivalent, but this is almost like our modern day version of like Stone Cold and Rock teaming up. I mean, it's the two biggest stars in the company. I totally get it. Two, and equally importantly, they're in Cody Rhodes' hometown. They're in Atlanta. So you might want him in the main event. So I totally get that. Three, after that awesome video package they did on SmackDown last week, and the fact they replayed it on Raw, which they never really replay stuff on Raw in its entirety from SmackDown, tells me they want you to know that this is a big deal. And four, there might be, going off of what you just said, Randy, like some sort of angle to set this up, whether it be whatever. I don't think Solo would pin Cody again. We've seen that. That would be stupid. We're done with Cody and Solo. I could see Kevin Owens maybe coming out, attacking Cody. or Randy Orton maybe being the one to turn heel. He shows up and attacks Cody or Roman or whatever because they don't approve of them teaming and whatever else to set up for Crown Jewel. I get all of that, but I would save whatever angle that is for SmackDown the next week at the very least. I would have this kick off the show. I would have that kick off the show. And there's also, the thing is, it's a good match. I'm looking forward to the match. Roman and Jacob Fatu sharing the ring is going to be fucking cool. But there's no stakes there. It's just a tag team match. And it's a big tag team match. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the other match, not that there's no stakes, but like it's been building for 9 months. It's Hell in a Cell. It's the first Hell in a Cell match in a year and a half. We have never gone this long without ever having a Hell in a Cell match before. It's been a year and a half. Usually we have one every 365 days or every 9 months. This is the longest stretch that we've ever gone without having a Hell in a Cell match, to my knowledge, after looking it up and doing the research. So it's got to headline the show. I mean, like Jeff said, I think every installment of Bad Blood, and there hasn't been too many of them over the years, every single one has been headlined by Hell in a Cell. I don't know why this would be any different. To have, like, they even promised blood on Raw in the promos. Punk said, I'm going to make you fucking bleed. Drew said, I'm going to make you bleed. How do you have that going anywhere but last, and then just have Cody and Roman out there exchanging fucking headlocks with Solo Sikoa? I'm sorry. I feel like this has got to go on last.
He said, I'm going to make you bleed in the first match.
Dude, no. Or Jeff said, or like Jeff said, you got to have it go on second to last. To have it open the show, the crowd will be.
At the very least.
Yeah, I feel bad for, like, Balor and Damian will be on too. And they're going to be fucked after going on after Hell in the Cell. So just have the tag team match open. That's what I would do.
Jeff, I don't want to make you sound old, but do you know that when Bad Blood does take place on the 5th of October, it'll be 28 years to the day of the first Bad Blood Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels and Taker?
27. But yeah.
20. My math is terrible. 27.
You're 1 year off.
Yeah, I went to summer school twice for math.
That's funny. That's fun. That's
27
crazy,
years
Time
to the day.
flies, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Time flies.
That's why it has the main event.
You know what's great about being old, Randy? Aging. Because if you stop aging, that's a bad look either way. Because either you're dead or you're undead.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I don't know, I know Hollywood popularized beautiful vampires, but I don't know how immortality looks on the other side. What's the function start functioning, right?
So what's your favorite Hell in a Cell match, and what do you think is the greatest Hell in a Cell match?
Oh wow. I would say my favorite, it's probably Undertaker Mankind. Like it was the one that raised the stakes. It set the floor for stakes in Hell in a Cell matches. Like Mankind going Dial-It before Dial-It was Dial-It off of the top of the cage, getting chokeslammed through the cage, holes through your tongue, your nose, your tooth is sticking out of your nose, all of that. That's the one I always default to when I think about it in my mind. The greatest, maybe that one is the greatest in terms of magnitude. Magnitude for what it was, right? Because it set the precedent for everything else, even more than the first one. Right. So I would say in terms of grandeur and size and magnitude, that one to me. My favorite, I would go between a couple. I think I have a top three, and it usually fluctuates. So
all right,
that Triple H Cactus Jack, because it was just ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like it was. Cactus Jack would not die, and Triple H tried his best because that was a retirement match.
Yeah,
so that had ultimate stakes too. And it was just, I just remember the scenes from it. They on top. Triple H, it's like Triple H was a character from Elden Ring trying to trying to become the final boss. So that one, Triple Undertaker with Shawn as the referee. That one in terms of storytelling inside of Hell in a Cell.
Yeah,
there's not too much that come close. And then modern times, it's Cody and Seth. Because boy, I thought that chest was going to come off the bone like pulled pork. I thought that man was not going to have a chest anymore. They kayfabed it up crazy along with real life. Like I'm sure they put some extra powder or stuff like that. on it to make it look even more grotesque. But the fact that he was able to wrestle with a torn pec that whole time, and Seth was also able to finish his story from the Finn Balor injury to now, because you remember, I know Graham, you in the weeds with it. You know there was allegations about Seth being an unsafe worker after the freak Balor injury. They take the bump like this all the time with leading with their shoulders. So I wonder, low key aside, how that doesn't happen more. But it was just a freak accident. And for Seth to be able to protect Cody in that moment and still tell the storyline, hearing the crowd gasp when Cody's jacket came off, it just felt like you were watching a movie. And I really appreciated what both those guys gave us on that night. So those are like some of the ones that I think about when I think about Hell in a Cell.
And I usually ask Grant this question every year. This is like a tradition. So if I want to guess what he would say, I think he would have the Usos, a New Day, Hell in a Cell.
Okay,
am I right, Graham? Am I right?
It would not. That's an excellent match, but that would not be in my top 3.
Oh man,
that is a great match, though. It is one of the best ones of the modern times.
I thought I knew you too well. Maybe it's Seth and the Fiend. Come on, Graham. Is Seth and the Fiend? No.
I will log out right now, Randy. That is the worst Hell in the Cell match of all time. By a country mile. That's one of the worst matches in company history. Period.
It's a shame.
Didn't Sasha and Charlotte have one?
I was actually at that one. They did that one in Boston. That was the first female main event ever for a WWE pay-per-view. And I don't know if this is a bold opinion or not. I did not think that was that good. I think they've had far better women's Hell in the Cell matches since then. I think Bianca and Bayley had one that was good. Becky and Sasha. So you talk about Fiend and Rollins. Match was awful. What people forget about from that same show, Becky and Sasha opened that show and had a fucking great Hell in the Cell match. But everyone forgets about it because that other terrible one headline. But Sasha and Charlotte did have one that wasn't that good. It was all right. It was decent. Charlotte winning in Boston was kind of very disappointing. So typical Vince finish.
I'm surprised no one said maybe the first ever Hell in a Cell match, Shawn Michaels and Taker, but we're not picking that one.
Well, so here's what I would say. I would say almost exactly what Jeff said, where I think the biggest / most memorable one is Mankind and Taker. I don't think there is any other answer to that but that match. I think I was just writing about this the other day. I would say the match that defines the legacy of Hell in a Cell is Mankind and Undertaker from King of the Ring 98. The best Hell in a Cell match, in my opinion, is the first one. I think that from bell to bell, because that Taker Mankind match, like, what do you constitute as a match? Like, there's no real wrestling. It's all moments, but that's wrestling. I mean, I don't know. It's we can have a whole conversation about that, but it has moments and drama and everything. But as a match, like in ring shit, that first match is just untouchable. And you have the Kane debut on top of that. I mean, it's literally like the perfect match, completely set the precedent. My favorite, though, my answers also fluctuate. I go back to like some of the ones that Jeff mentioned from Triple H and Taker at Mania 28 or whatever. Great match. Underrated one, honestly, but it might be my favorite thinking back on it now. Triple H, Batista. I mean, that was the same thing where Triple H put him over 3 times, including in that match. Vengeance 05. One of the bloodiest matches I've ever seen. Great storytelling, made Batista a star. I mean, you think him beating Triple H and Mania made him a star. It kind of did, but it was like that Hell in the Cell match that really solidified his status as a main event player. So that might be my number one. Edge and Taker had one a couple of years later that I love as a fan. Cody Rollins, Jeff mentioned that one. I think Edge and Rollins also had one of the best modern day Cell matches. It was in like fucking Saudi Arabia or something, but I think it was Crown Jewel 2021. They had an amazing Hell in the Cell match. So there's a lot of them, but those are among my favorites, though.
Can I say one thing real quick, Randy?
Go ahead.
Edge Finn WrestleMania 39 would have been among my top if they did the right thing and Finn would have won that match.
The match was good, yeah. The outcome sucked, though.
How does that's why we don't see the demon anymore. It's like on the pecking orders of supernatural entities, the demon is like a lower level person. Like he needs to find a new demon. I'd rather see Prince Devitt. Prince Devitt with his regular paint is stronger is more OP than the Demon Finn Balor.
They killed the Demon that night.
Yeah, they slow for Edge. Edge.
And I love Edge. But here's the thing, though. The worst part about that was I get it. Like, they wanted to give Edge his comeuppance over Balor, give Balor his comeuppance, whatever. I get that. But the worst part about all of that was Edge left the company mere months later, and then later said after that feud was over, they had no plans for Edge. So they had no plans for him. Then why the fuck would they put him over Balor? And then Balor went on to challenge for the world title like 2 months later. It made no sense. Right. It still makes no sense.
Oh man,
I think he would agree with that too. It makes no sense.
He got staples in his head. They had to stop the match to staple his head.
Yeah,
that would have to me. You call it in the ring and say, "Yo, you gotta go." He stapled his head, and the Demon keeps going, and the Demon overcame a gaping wound in his head, but could not stop the execution. Like, come on, man! Like that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Okay. $1 million question: do we see the Demon ever come back again?
We probably will. They'll probably dust it off one of these days.
But how
the Demon got to turn into Hogan? The Demon got to turn to Hogan. It don't work for me, brother. I'm not coming out of hell unless I'm going over, bro. Like, the Demon ain't coming out of his pit unless he's going over.
So we don't see no Demon against Damian Priest at all. Just regular Finn.
Yeah.
Well, at Bad Blood, it'll be regular Finn. At some point, maybe, but like, I don't think it works as a heel either. I think he's got to be a babyface because people are going to want to cheer it. And he was a heel in that match against Edge, and that also didn't really work. So
that's true.
Yeah.
You know what? I would even say now in this climate with the licensing deals and how WWE has the elite marketing connections and they just know how to tie themselves to pop culture.
Yeah,
he can. If Finn is eventually going to come back around and be a face again. I think that's he loves being a heel though. So who knows?
Yeah.
But I do think he can tie into some marketing aspect and finally do his New Japan paint with characters and stuff like that. And they can license it and figure it out. Hey, if they're able to do that, then I would rather see him do character-driven from his mind paint than to bring the Demon back. If the Demon isn't going to be the Demon.
I agree. I
got a few more before I let both of you guys go. Jey Uso, brand new Intercontinental Champion, first singles title of his long career, defeated Braun Breaker. I thought, me and Graham would talk about why ain't this match at the pay-per-view Bad Blood, but they did it on Raw instead. But just a few questions about that. Okay, one, well, I guess we're all happy for Jey. What you thought about the match, but also why do you think they pulled the trigger so early on Braun to give Uso the moment? And do you think this is going to be a long title reign for Jey Uso? Jeff, go first.
I think they pulled the trigger on Braun because this isn't going to be the last title that Braun holds. My personal preference, I like a hot potato mid-card title because it shows the suddenness of title reigns. Just like in heavyweight boxing, one hit could end your reign. If you are defending champion, eventually those defenses should get to you and you're caught vulnerable at the worst time. Or if you're a heel, you become too like self-righteous and you're not aware of what's going on, right? So you get too cocky and you leave yourself vulnerable to get caught out there, which is what I think storyline wise happened to Braun, because in this story he's still a young superstar who came up and who shot out like a cannon, right? Like a cannonball out of a cannon, and he was able to capture that title. And I think you had a combination of two definitive forces in WWE. You had the rising Braun Breaker, and then Jey Uso, who to me is one of the breakout stars of 2024. And I know it's crazy when you think about breakout, but Jey Uso was hot, Graham, in 2023. He is on fire in 2020. He's the sun in 2024. And I think if there was any time to do it, you might as well do it now, especially since he's been losing these opportunities a lot.
Yeah.
You can't keep having him lose because eventually nobody's going to buy in. So if you have him win now, they could probably run it back. They should run it back in Bad Blood. And go bring the dog to Georgia. You got to bring the dog to Georgia, right?
That would make sense.
So I can see that happening. I can see Jey giving it up after there. Like if you want to make it a title that goes to people, and I think with where with Gunther and Sammy have brought the IC title, you can get an immediate rub by being the IC champion, being a good storyline. You give it up after a couple of months, then you could go on to something else and use that star power. It's like the reverse version of Soul Edge. Instead of you becoming corrupt, you become a bigger star, right? And then you're able to where everybody that holds the IC title can gain that rub, right? So I think that's how I look at it.
Graham?
I loved it. Listen, I didn't think they would actually do it because one thing that Triple H has proven over the course of his time as the head of creative, and he's done a great job, is that the man loves long title reigns. For baby faces, for heels especially, he loves the long title reigns. I prefer the lengthier title reigns, but that being said, going off of what Jeff said, I agree. Sometimes you got to switch things up with shorter title reigns just to keep people on their feet. Because if you have every champion hold every belt from Mania to SummerSlam, SummerSlam to Mania, Mania to Mania, like we're probably going to see with Cody, among other people, it gets too formulaic. So when they have title matches on Raw and SmackDown, it's way too fucking predictable. Most people thought on Raw, Braun Breaker's going to win. He just won the belt. Why would he lose? And then he lost. Yeah. But you can tell the story, like Jeff said, he got too cocky. He's young. He's an up-and-comer. He got too confident, overconfident, and that cost him the title. He wasn't undefeated. He wasn't undefeated for 5 years. He already lost to Sammy a couple months ago. He shouldn't rack up losses every week now, but he's going to get the belt back. He'll get the belt back in a month. He'll get the belt back in 3 weeks. He'll get the belt back in 2 months. He won't go on to win the world title next month or whatever, Braun Breaker, that is, and he shouldn't. But I think this is only a step in the road for him that makes him more vulnerable for now. But I think moreover than anything else, Jeff said this as well, you had to give Jey his moment. You can only have someone go to the big one so many times and lose before people give up on that guy thinking, this guy's just a fucking loser. Like, he'll get the big title shots and challenge for every belt and then just lose. He's done that. I mean, they said how many title matches? 7 this year, not even including Money in the Bank, King of the Ring. The guy loses all the time in the big title matches. He's over. He's really a miracle. Jey Uso should not be as over as he is, but he's so goddamn charismatic, and he's like not even like the best wrestler in the world or the best promo. That's what I'm saying. He's just amazingly over. You got to capitalize on that. Get that great moment that we got on Raw. That will go down as one of the best Raw moments all year. That crowd went nuts. They went berserk because they weren't expecting it. And it doesn't matter if he holds it for 2 weeks or a month. People will remember that moment, and Jey Uso will be better off for it. And now he's the second ever father-son combo to have held the IC title, him and Rikishi, following Mr. Perfect and Curtis Axel, which, people forget about, and I understand why.
That's right.
It was a great moment on Raw. I thought it was definitely the right call.
Curtis Axel is still in the Royal Rumble.
Oh my God! 10 years on, he's
never been eliminated. This is also true.
Axel Mania running wild. Yeah.
Real quick, so knock on wood before my Wi-Fi chops out. Speaking of titles, I read somewhere that, which could be a great fucking idea. I think my boy and I mentioned it months ago that there's discussions of a mid-card title for the women's division. We're talking U.S. title, Intercontinental Championship, not just heavyweight and tag team. We're trying to bring the mid-card titles to the women's division, which can spark off a lot of matches, a lot of people getting some more shine, more TV time. Jeff, are you in the camp of like, I think it's because Triple H, he's doing new things. He's adding on, and it's like, hey, I think it is time that we have a women's Intercontinental Championship, a women's United States Championship. Are you on board with that?
I am, and I think NXT is the training ground for it. You see it with the women's North American title. That is like their beta test for whether or not it can be viable on the main. But if you look at NXT has an abundance of female talent that is training, that is a lot of them ahead of the curve, a lot of them coming from different promotions, and they are training their NIL athletes and the women that they get from the indies, and all together they have enough women where they can be a whole show on NXT. They could carry a whole pay-per-view, and it's not out of the ordinary. It doesn't seem peculiar. It just seems like it fits. So if you're going to have SmackDown going to 3 hours, Netflix on Raw, it's just vibes. We're done when we say we're done, right? Yeah. The more TV time means you're going to need more talent. And they have enough talent in the pipeline to supplement singles titles for the women. I think with anything, you have to tell the right stories and you have to build them up. You can't just have these titles there for the sake of. Like, I think they're getting back on track with the women's tag team titles and building that up. But I do think if you're going to have these women, you got to continue to get them the TV time, continue to invest in their storylines, which I like under Triple H and under Shawn Michaels. I don't see that being an issue. It's just you have to be able to balance it and get caught in the sauce. I actually think WWE is starting to adopt that MMA combat sports model where every month the WWE champion does not have to be the headliner, especially on the quote unquote B-level PLEs. Maybe 1 month it's the storyline that has the most heat, which full circle, we go back to Bad Blood, which is in that model, it would be Drew and Punk. Because if it's about the gate, they got the gate, bro. They got the gate. They're hot. Like they have enough stars that's gonna bring the gate, right? Yep. And I think people have already adopted. Bloodline is its own segment in WWE. We already know that. We accept it. Majority of the fans love it. We know its importance. It's already had an established importance. It's in its own stratosphere. It's almost its own universe. But it does touch everything, but we know it's like the Bloodline verse, but everybody accepts it and they like it. I'd also think fans at this point are smart enough to know, okay, this is Bad Blood, for example. Or, hey, SummerSlam, we're coming to see the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring winners fight for the title. This is the story. This is the main event. So as long as they're able to balance those storylines, I think it's time. I do think it's time.
G?
I agree with that as well. I think they have the depth to make it work, the amount of talent to make it work on the main roster. They are trying with the tag titles. To me, it's just the experiment just hasn't worked. And it's not because of the women involved. It's because WWE a lot of the times just has not cared. And when they have gotten something going with Bianca and Jade, you know, when they lose those titles, they will go back to not giving a shit about them. So I would like to see them ideally quietly get rid of those, bring in mid-card belts. I don't know if you institute one per brand off the bat or do like one that travels between the shows. I think that might work ideally. It just creates more storylines. I don't know. Me personally, I would be more invested. And you can't just have titles for the sake of titles, like Jeff said. If you have the right stories, which they lack in the mid-card women's division, they do try in certain respects. But a lot of the times, it's like the main title program they put a lot of effort into with like Rhea and Liv, for example. And then beyond that, they just give up. Like the Pure Fusion Collective, like the fuck even is that? Like, does anyone even really care about that? Like the talent themselves are talented, but like the group itself, no one really cares about because they're having matches that don't matter. They're exchanging wins. Where's the story? Like there needs to be a story here, or the matches need to be exceptional for me to really care. And they're not. Yeah. So I think adding a title automatically wouldn't solve that issue, but it might motivate them to make more stories. Because it's clear, even with the men, they are not incapable of creating good tag team stories. They just don't care to. Like, that's just not a priority for Vince, Triple H, whoever's been in charge. The tag team title stories, for the most part, they either put some effort into it sometimes and then just give up, or they just don't put effort into it at all. So, yeah, I think a women's mid-card belt at some point would be a great idea. Maybe just, like I said, one that floats between Raw and SmackDown, and then maybe doing one each at some point down the road, if it works.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I can see how sometimes the tag team titles get parked on superstar talent. Like the judge, just put it in the Judgment Day. We know they're going to get the exposure. So it gets the exposure because the man is making the title. Yeah. But we need the title to also make the man too. Exactly. So so it's finding that balance because I get it. Triple is like, you can't bet 1,000. You can't bet 1,000, and some stuff is going to need work. But I could also see business decisions being made. Like, all right, I'll get back to that in October. I'll just hold it down. We'll make tangential storylines. But to have a company run on all cylinders where every single storyline that's probably like the S tier level idealistic future
That's never
state.
going to happen. Yeah.
That's when you're making $1 billion a year. To be completely honest, that's when you're selling everything out, and everything got to go to 2 nights because it's just an obsessive demand.
Yeah.
So Jeff, who would you make if they brought in a women's Intercontinental Championship? Who are you making the first champion?
Well, this is my take. I would not call it the women's Intercontinental title.
Okay.
I would make a whole new title. I'd fuck around and bring back the European title and make it a woman's title before I do the. But I understand for hashtag branding, for synergy, for all of the buzz, the marketing buzzword, why you do it, and it makes sense, and it is the right business decision. Creatively, I would just come up with something new.
I agree.
You know, just come up with something new, just for the sake of, right? Like, I know people talk about the Speed Championship and the IWC goes crazy for everything, but I know they go crazy with Speed. But I think that's something that's creative on a business level and on a wrestling level. Because if you're gonna have, this is like making squash matches matter. Mm-hmm. If a match is only gonna be 5 minutes, you're implementing stakes. You either win or you're eliminated from this competition to say that you're the wrestler who he doesn't work by the hour. Remember that? He doesn't work by the hour. Nope. So you get that wrestling. And also you as a wrestler are fulfilling a business need with this deal with X. So you can show and prove like, hey, I can hold you down financially. I can sustain a business line for you. And then that, that's going to help propel you into other areas. So I would make it a whole new title. But if there was a mid-card women's wrestler right now, I would probably shy away from going from a known quantity, although that's the smartest thing to do, I would say, just to like get the buzz. I might put it on someone like Tiffany Stratton. She's got a buzz. She's an up and comer. It's kind of like what they did with Kalani Jordan. Yeah. Or I'll big brain it. They have a tournament. Roxanne Perez comes through and gets that. Off the bat. And let's go. and let's go. That's my big brain. I'll say Roxanne Perez after whatever happens with Julia and Stephanie, because she got problems. Yeah. She got problems right now. But after that saga ends, I would have her show up, maybe, appear in the Rumble, then be on the main. They start this tournament and she comes out of nowhere. I don't know if she would keep her heel persona or whatever, but either way, I think it would work for her to get the title, surprisingly get the title, and then maybe bring her heel persona or let her be the white meat baby face. Either way, I think she is the prototypical, I need a new title and I want to make it hot. That's what she did for the ROH women's title.
I agree. I think that's a great fit. Either Roxanne, I was thinking... I first of all, not Charlotte Flair. I would not go someone like anyone but Charlotte.
If you want to make money, Graham, you already know.
Come on,
Big Shaw. You better get Big Shaw.
You got a new title that she hasn't held yet? Put it on Charlotte Flair.
Right there.
So that's where I'm automatically assuming it's going to go. But if we want to go someone different that hasn't held a singles title, that, let's be honest, will probably never be the WWE Women's Champion or the Women's World Champion. 2 names on SmackDown come to my head right off the bat. One is Michin. I don't think she'll hold a main title, but she's really, really good. She's getting more TV time. She deserves it, and I think she can make it work. 2, I don't know if it's the most popular answer, but she's really done well in her role. She's not the best worker they have on the roster. Chelsea Green. I mean, she's just so entertaining, and I think she would make that work as a chicken shit heel champion. Like I said, I don't know if she'll ever hold the main championship, but a mid-card belt would be perfect for her. So those are my 2 top choices.
Graham is potting right now. I got no notes. 10 out of 10. Graham is potting right now.
I thought Graham was gonna say one of his favorites, Natalia.
No, get in there. Listen. No. One of my favorites, my ass. No thanks. God bless her. Listen, she can work with the young talent. I am content with never seeing Natalia hold the championship again. But you know what? Maybe so. Who knows? Jeff,
we got a running joke on here for years. Graham just like, when it comes to like Natalia, the first the first rendition of Nia Jax. I think he's a fan of her now. I think she's changed a whole lot.
She's improved a lot. Nia's good now.
Nia Jax. Who was Gender? He don't like Gender.
You was hindering Gender.
I be hindering Gender. Listen,
yeah,
I'm hindering Gender. That I was one of those. Nice guy. No thanks.
And it was Dolph Ziggler. Everything is like who's gonna win? Fucking Dolph Ziggler.
In recent years.
So God damn.
Now he's great. Bro. Now he's great. Obviously, I like it. But the thing, he was just in the same spot for so long. It's like just give me something new. Now he's doing well.
And you know what's hilarious about Dolph now, Nick Nemeth now?
Yeah.
When he won the TNA title, I felt like he was kind of in the same position because I thought TNA was nuts not to put the title on Joe Hendry.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like
now it's full circle. Now he's getting the next title shot. Yeah.
Right. So they had it working over there, but I definitely get that's hilarious. What is it that Natalya had to? Was she overexposed for you, or
she's overexposed for me?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Natalya's a good worker, but she's been there for so long, and they've had her do the same things for so long. Again,
that's fair.
One of the nicest people on the roster. She's helped so many people backstage. That's great. But like, she's been the same character for like a decade. And sometimes that works. For me, it doesn't. So whenever I hear that music, I turn the volume down.
Once you hear the guitar riff, you throw your remote.
Sorry, Natalia.
No, I hear you. No, that makes a whole lot of sense because it's kind of like you keep hitting the Natalya button, but it's the same button.
Yeah.
Like, what if she just did something different? But at this point, it's like,
she's not
gonna. What can she do? She just has her position. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, what else are we gonna do with Natalya? Like that isn't gonna be out of the ordinary.
Yeah, exactly.
If I had to pick real quick, I wouldn't mind like Naomi with it. I know she's established, but still, it's like you got to find something for them to do and be a part of. Obviously, I'm gonna go with like the Biancas and the Jades, but those three. I could see Chelsea Green. I could see Stratton if post Money in the Bank.
The entire SmackDown Women's Division. It sounds.
That's right. Real quick, fellas, couple of quick hitters, and you tell me, first thought in your head. So we SmackDown going to 3 hours beginning in January, but only up till June. What do you think?
Only up to June?
Yeah, that's the rumor. Yeah,
that's the rumor.
I mean, that 3rd hour might have to catch me on Saturday night SmackDown after Friday. I mean, we gotta have lives, man. I was so used to the 2-hour SmackDown. I mean, I get it. Are they only doing it for 6 months? Why are they only doing it?
It's probably just an experiment. But that's a long experiment, though.
USA exercise their option. They subscribe for 6 months, and they're gonna see at the end if they're gonna renew.
Yep.
I think I'm not gonna watch. I may not watch all 3 hours every Friday, but once again, full circle what we were talking about. More opportunity, great storyline. We already know one of them hours is gonna be Bloodline, so it's all right. It's like one of those segments is gonna be Bloodline, and that's the thing that made SmackDown so efficient. You start off with the Bloodline, or you end with the Bloodline, or you bookend with the Bloodline, and then there's good matches in the middle. And by the time you look up, if you're in the arena, it's time for the dark match. Yeah, and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. Or if you're at home, you like, before it went to USA, it's like it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? I was like, damn, I didn't even know we were here. I didn't even know we were here at 9:55, let alone where our kids are. I don't know where the kids are. I don't know what happened to SmackDown because it's over. So adding that 3 hours is going to be a little bit jarring. I feel for the people who review because now it's like, damn, it's like a whole other hour and then 3 hours of Raw. But Raw is going to 2 hours from October to December. So
that's balances out.
I don't know. And I guess Netflix, I think, is going to be 2 hours plus. Like maybe they'll go over like NXT. Like they'll go over a little bit, or if they have like a super show, like we might see the dark matches that we don't see before if you're not in the arena. So I think they have a lot to play with.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, plus Raw going 3 hours on Netflix anyway, so I'm like, all right,
right.
Cool. And I think just the overall seeing experience of watching a live program on Netflix is going to be different because. Like they can get off anytime they want. They can get off at 10:18. It don't matter. Just whenever we're done, we're done. There's no cut you off, like run over time. So just that whole experience is going to be kind of cool. Graham, I'll go to you next. Mercedes Moné says it is unlikely for her to return to World Wrestling Entertainment.
I have not seen that.
She on a show here in New York, a radio show here in New York, promoting Grand Slam, which I get to next. And they must have asked her about that and said, oh, do you see yourself ever going back? And obviously, in us being fans for a very long time, somebody might say never, ever. And then like 5 years down the road, 10 years.
She'll be back in 3 years.
Always come back. Somehow, some way, always come back. Do you think she's just saying that now because she's currently in AEW, or do you think like she'll be back?
She'll be back. I mean, she literally said herself, this wasn't even a report. I'm not even really sure why she said this, but she said recently, she goes, oh yeah, I was going to be back for Hollywood, like Sasha in Hollywood, whatever. Mercedes Mone in Hollywood would have been perfect for Mania 39. And then the AEW offer came through, or the New Japan offer came through, or whatever she said. So she would have been back within a year of leaving. So, and if there were rumors that she was going to be back earlier this year before she went to AEW instead, what does that tell you? I'm not saying she'll be back next year. She'll be back. It doesn't matter if it's 3, 5 years, 2 years. That's not even a question. I mean, of all the people that have left, I would put her at the top of the list. She will be back probably within 5 years or less. That's my ballpark, I would say. And that's fine. She's doing good stuff in AEW, so it is what it is.
So, Jeff, staying on AEW real quick. So, Rusev wants out the contract. Lucha Bros might be on the way out. I'm hearing she'll be good. Ray Phoenix is going to be held captive until his contract is up by Tony Khan. And also they might be having some pay-per-views on Max starting in January. What do you think?
I don't think, man. It's so exhausting, right? Because for a promotion that's supposed to be the alternative, I keep seeing the same old shit happening over and over. I was told that we are not like WWE. This is not a prison. This is an open environment. When you show up, you adhere to your contract, you're good. But if you don't want to be here, you can leave. And that's clearly not the case. We've seen there's countless talent right now that are getting time added to their contract just so that they don't appear in Chicago or St. Louis on the CW network. Right now, actively happening. So I just think that's corny, man, because at the end of the day, I think the wrestling industry should thank their lucky stars that there was an injunction on that ruling about non-competes. The non-compete contract ruling, there was like an injunction or whatever. So I guess it's got to go to the Supreme Court because once that non-compete stuff gets out of here, we'll have a transfer portal popping off in wrestling, So I just think I think if folks want out, they should get out. I wouldn't have signed a contract with time added on. That's just me.
Yeah.
Like if I was a wrestler and that was a clause, I would tell my lawyer to remove it or I'll go somewhere else. Yeah. I don't know. I get it. People say wrestlers aren't the most intelligent people or aren't the most bright. They think about the paper and they'll just sign some stuff. But for me, nah, I wouldn't sign a deal like that now. If I get sick, you're gonna add a week to my contract? Like, what does that mean?
Like, yeah, buddy, you were sick back in May 4th.
Right, especially in time.
Especially if I'm getting hurt on your fucking watch. I got hurt working for you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been hurt. You know what I mean?
Bro, I'm showing up with my cast. I'm showing up with the wheelchair. I'm showing up like with the blue tent, the concussion protocol tent. Like, yo, I will go announce. I will be the manager. I'll show up every week if you need, or say I'm available. If you're writing me off, you're writing me off. Yeah. I am available to work.
It doesn't even make sense because you would think ideally, like, okay, Ray Phoenix specifically, we pay you, we want you for 5 years. So we're going to use you in those 5 years. Okay, so he gets hurt. We still want to use you for that extra year that you signed for, but they're not going to use them is the thing. They're just sitting at home, dude. There's so many people like that currently. They're fucking paying to sit at home. This is literally WWE from 5 years ago, and they still do this from time to time. No company should be doing this. If you have no plans for these people, and they want to go, let them go. I know they signed a contract. I get it. You have to adhere to a contract. But if you're not going to use these fucking people, then what's the point of having? Why would you pay these people to sit there and do nothing? And if there's such a threat to go to WWE, like Jeff said, to show up in NXT in St. Louis or Chicago, then fucking use them yourself and then use them as the star that you don't want them to be over there.
Sounds
makes no
super
sense.
Intelligent. Sounds brilliant. That sounds brilliant, man.
Stupid.
Last point, I did see MVP show up on AEW Grand Slam, which opens the door for maybe Shelton coming in, maybe Bobby Lashley coming in, the Hurt Business coming in. We just don't know. But talk about that, both you guys, and how it was Grand Slam, because I did not watch it.
Graham, you got it. You got.
Let's go, G. Let's go. Let's go.
I'll go after you.
I'll give you the quick recap here. It was a good show. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was better than your average Dynamite, but that's not saying much because your average Dynamite nowadays is just it's so weird, man, because like Dynamite is so fucking missable these days. But like the pay-per-views are great. It's bizarre. Like I thought All In, All Out were great shows, but the actual TV product is just, it's not bad, but like if you don't watch, you miss nothing. This week was a step above that. And MVP showing up was the best part because I kind of forgot about him being a free agent. So I thought that was cool. If they're going to give him a chance over there, maybe incorporate some of their own talent like a Powerhouse Hobbs, or they tease something with Swerve. Awesome. I think that's cool. I like the Hurt Business. That's another knock on Triple H that he didn't like. How do you not reunite those guys or give them a chance to do something again? Like he didn't use MVP at all. I mean, the guy's 50 something, but you could have used him as a manager like that.
Well,
to me,
it was Vince that broke him up, right?
It was, but they asked Triple H to put them back together, and he said no. Triple H could have put them back together. He just didn't want to. He did have Bobby with the Profits, and that was good, but I don't know. To not even use MVP to me was a waste. So hopefully gets an opportunity over an AEW. I think that's pretty cool. So we'll see what happens. I was intrigued by what they did on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think WWE kind of ran its course with the Hurt Business. I know MVP was with Omos, and Omos wasn't really on TV. Like they're still trying to figure out what to do with Omos. He's more of an attraction. And Bobby Lashley has literally done everything, rarely lost. Yeah. So, I'm glad Seth is getting a refresh and rebranding on NXT right now, and hopefully he's able to build that up. Here's the thing about Grand Slam. Grand Slam was cool, but I had people in my mentions and discussing this earlier. I still think it was an all-time idiotic decision.
I know exactly. I saw your tweet. I agree.
Darby Allin has a world title shot for Grand Slam. Jon Moxley commits attempted murder on Daniel Bryan, then faces off against Darby and says, "You're not ready. I'm the one that needs to lead this company. I want your world title shot." So Darby says, if you want to fight me and Bryan ain't ready, I'll fight you at Grand Slam for this title shot. I'll show you that I'm ready. Cool. Then Nigel McGuinness steps out from behind the commentary booth and says, "I want to rekindle a 2 decades long beef and wrestle Daniel Bryan if he's clear to compete." And we're hearing if he's clear to compete as if he's not going to show up. Yeah. Then the world champion shows up and has a non-title match against a dude who hasn't been wrestling. Let's not even talk about the ratings. Who cares? The ratings are vibes. They come back, they go, they stay. I could be rated number 1, and then I go to get the Continental Breakfast title instead of the world title or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. The world champion is fighting Nigel McGuinness on the same show that Darby Allin is fighting for his contract that he's supposed to face the world champion at the same event. At the same event.
On that show, it was supposed to happen.
I do not care if you are 80 Sting level of dumb baby face. If the world champion shows up in Queens to fight, he's not fighting Nigel McGuinness. He's fighting me. I'm taking Nigel out and I'm fighting you. If Mox wants in, fuck it, make it a triple threat. But I'm getting my world title shot. That made absolutely no sense that Darby Allin would give up his world title shot to Mox at the same event he's supposed to be fighting for the world title. It is unjustifiable. It's the laziest booking that I've seen. And the fact that people tell me I'm not watching the product and I don't know what's going on, I don't know what they're watching. And I keep it real about what I watch, right? Like if I see something stupid in WWE, I'll bring it up, or something I don't agree with. I'll say something is a vibe. I think it's fair, but I do think that there's a lot of people who want AEW to thrive so much because they are either disillusioned from WWE and now they have their super indie fed their super indie fed that they can see weekly and they want to keep it as is. You know what these people are? Remember Kevin Owens promo in NXT? When he talked about going to the Barclays and Full Sail started booing, and he told them, "You are the problem. Y'all want to support us and y'all want us to grow, but the minute we grow, now you're telling us that now you're booing because you just want us to be this little thing in Full Sail." That's how those people are that will accept any type of booking or any type of star rating and deny what's in front of their eyes. Like KD said once, I don't watch basketball with spreadsheets. I don't watch wrestling with constellations in my face. I watch what's in front of my face. And that just didn't make any sense from any perspective. And I don't understand how they continue to do this and the fans don't demand more. Or at least keep it real and call it out.
Yeah.
Graham, me letting Jeff talk, you know what I just did? You know what the kids say nowadays?
Let him cook.
I let him cook, bro.
Yeah.
I was
This is stupid, man.
I agree, man. It's so fucking dumb. And not even that, like, as someone who did want to see Nigel and Bryan, I mean, I didn't grow up on the Ring of Honor matches, but I like Nigel. I want to see him back in the ring. The whole point of the match, man, was to have Bryan respond and have them go back and forth, because the whole story there was that Nigel was jealous of Bryan's success in WWE because he had to retire and Bryan went on to have all this great success. We didn't even hear from fucking Daniel Bryan because he was gone for 3 weeks for having a bag on his head 3 weeks ago. What is he doing for 3 weeks? Is he in the hospital? What the fuck? I mean, did he have brain damage? Like, that doesn't make any sense as to why he would be gone for that long. He just showed up, beat him. That was it. That was it. They just moved on. He didn't even address Nigel. He just beat him, and it was a good match. But then at the end of the show, he moved on to the next thing. Like, that Nigel thing never even happened. So what was the fucking point? Like, you said.
I heard he went to a local medical facility right after.
Yo, to your point, Graham, don't we got the 5th anniversary of Dynamite?
Next week?
Yeah.
Why couldn't they fight then? Why couldn't they fight then? Or here, if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to get the championship opportunity out of Darby's hands, Bryan should not have shown up. He shouldn't have shown up. Then he shows up the next week to challenge Nigel. Then everything that happened at the end of the match. So after, I think it was after Daniel's match where they all came out and
it was later. It was after Moxley and Allen, I think. Yeah,
right. After he beat Darby, that's when the Combat Club tried to a brown paper bag Darby or whatever, and then Daniel makes the save and then says, "You want to fight? All right, I'll fight you at Wrestle Dream." But it's like, bro, he already got the title shot. You're not calling the shot. He can call it in. Oh, and by the way, Christian is looming with the Money in the Bank, the AEW Money in the Bank contract. And he lost keeps showing up. Christian is the smartest person on this show because he's actually using the contract the way it's supposed to be used. He keeps showing up, and the Combat Club keeps showing up with him, and he's like, all right, next stop. He's like a cartoon villain. Like, he's the only one he's the Kevin Owens of AEW. He's the only one that watches the show and knows what's going on, and he knows where to find the pockets of logic and to inject himself to try to get the world title. Everything else is vibes, bro. Everything else is vibes.
The only thing I thought was dumb about that was that he looked like he was about to cash in. You had the Blackpool Combat Club there, but he didn't cash in because he hadn't signed the contract yet because Kip Sabian stole his pen. I was literally like watching this. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, what is this WWE 2018? This is ridiculous.
Oh, man.
The pen popped me though. I'm not gonna lie. Like I thought this is so stupid. This is like R-Truth. But it's not supposed to be.
Exactly. That's the point. If it's R-Truth, amazing, entertaining. Right. I get it. It's not supposed to.
This is not supposed to be that. That's what R-Truth would do. Or exactly. It would happen to R-Truth.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just ridiculous.
Listen, on that note, fellas, I appreciate you both coming on. I think Jeff might have to come every week on the show. So depending on his availability, we're gonna make it happen. Because for example, real quick, just me, I didn't see Grand Slam. I haven't seen AEW programming in a very long time. So all this Money to Bank this and lost my pen and I have no idea what's going on, but it's very entertaining. Like, damn, like what am I really missing out? So I appreciate you both for enlightening me on that. Graham Matthews, Wrestle Rant on Twitter for both Bleacher Report and Fansided DDT. Jeff Johnson, Bleacher Report, MSG Networks. Appreciate you both. Find the podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on Amazon Music, youtube.com/Cruise Control Podcast. Go ahead, download, rate, comment, subscribe. All that good stuff. Show some love, support for you boys on the program. Back at it either next Thursday or next Friday, depending on when Jeff wants to come back on. Come back on because we're doing Bad Blood is Saturday, so we probably got to do something before Saturday. Probably Thursday or Friday. Either way, we'll make it happen. Jeff, my man, we love you. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you
coming on, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Jeff.
Graham, we good?
I think we're good. This was a good time. Right? What'd you say?
We covered everything,
we
right?
We covered more than everything. Right. We got everything. We got to cut out before your Wi-Fi shits the bed again.
Bro.
It's been consistent, though. I like that lately.
Bro, it's the hard wire, hard line. Yo, bro, Jeff, real quick. The same shit happened last week with me and Graham. I did shows during the week. I'm all good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm all good. Today and last Friday.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. It's like
you got construction around you or something like that, or you have
nah.
Ethernet cables. The key. Jeff was saying that earlier.
Yeah, hardwire in, and then
hardwires in.
Even like I have a attachment for my MacBook, and I hardwire in, and sometimes I have to like push it in to make sure because it doesn't snap in.
Yeah.
So if it's wobbly, it'll hiccup. Mm-hmm. The connection is intermittent now, so you'll get moments of freezing, but it'll freeze and come back. Yours just felt like it did not want to work anymore.
Exactly. My shit gave up. But yo, fam, it's Friday, bro.
Exactly.
Jeff Johnson, Graham Matthews, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Right, take it easy.
Yep.